the other big thing was the homeschooling options that are in Florida are insane. I'm still like learning about it, but there's the PEP program. I think I'm saying that right. Where basically they give you a scholarship. If you're not attending the public schools, like your tax dollars are still going there. So they give it back to you in the form of this, I don't know if they call it a scholarship or stipend. I think it's a stipend, but like to the tune of like $5,000 to $8,000, something like that. I'm your host, Maggie Schneider, and welcome to the Slow Living Era podcast. This is a podcast for women navigating big life changes, moving, motherhood, and building a life that actually feels good to live without the hustle. Real life, slower living, and figuring it out as we go. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Maggie Schneider, and today we are going to be talking about how we actually landed on moving to Florida, specifically Northeast Florida. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail than what I did in the last episode and kind of walk through a little bit of the timeline about that as well and some factors that helped us make our decision. So as I mentioned, this was not a totally spontaneous decision. It's not like we packed up our bags and we're off to the races like within a month or anything like that. We had been talking about moving specifically to Florida since I graduated nursing school. I graduated nursing school at the end of 2015 it was. And I remember looking at applying for jobs in Jacksonville specifically. I don't know why. I think my husband was interested in getting, there were a couple of job opportunities for him in that area. At the time he was working for Bank of America, I believe that's correct. So just kind of getting a job transfer there was a possibility. And then he had a couple of other options he was looking at as well. When I went to look on Zillow. I mean, I'm always on Zillow. Who isn't? But when I was looking for houses this go around, I looked back in my like saved history on Zillow and there were like 5 or 6 houses in like the Ponte Vedra area. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Yeah. Northeast Florida, Jacksonville specifically. Yeah. I'm just like houses I had saved back in 2016. So it's crazy. Like life comes at you full circle sometimes, but obviously that never happened for whatever reason. I think we just were too scared to leave. Like we felt like we were kind of in our, I don't want to say party era, but you know, after you graduate college and you have a real job, like every weekend you go out with your friends. Like we were going to Baltimore or DC every weekend and we were just like enjoying life. So it all worked out. Obviously we didn't end up going. In hindsight, I'm like, I wonder what things would have looked like if we had gone down there back when we were, I don't know, 23, 22. But yeah, it never worked out. So another thing is there were several times where we almost moved and we didn't. And I think it's just like God's planning, God's timing on things. But another time, so with my husband's job, he works for his dad's delivery service business. And he went through this training program, my husband did. And basically at the end of it, they were going to place him in a job. And all that went through, they had settled on him moving to Raleigh to open up a place there. And so we were like really, really about to go. And like for whatever reason, it was like within a month of that kind of falling through, we found out I was pregnant with my third. And if you know me, you know that we had not planned on having our third when we did, at least. At the time, we were pretty set on being okay with 2. My youngest, my daughter at the time, was not quite 2 yet. So yeah, we were kind of surprised, but I just had to laugh because I was like, I think just God knew that we were going to have this baby and we were not meant to move away from all of our family and friends at the time. My dad was still living here, like my stepmom, my brother's still living here in Maryland. And yeah, we were so shocked that that job fell through for him. It was weird circumstances. But in hindsight, yeah, I think it wasn't meant to be. And so, yeah, we were going to move to Raleigh, told all our friends we were moving to Raleigh. I was on Zillow looking for houses and it never happened. And that was about 2023. Yeah, that happened. So about 3 years ago. And ever since then, we were kind of just like, just casually looking, like anywhere from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida were kind of our three main areas that we were looking in. Not that we like knew a ton about any of those areas. Probably Florida we knew the most. And a couple friends in Tampa that we would always be like, "Oh, how do you like it there?" And they're like, "We love it." I think I had a friend in Fort Lauderdale, and I had visited Fort Lauderdale for a bachelorette party, and I was like, "Oh, it's beautiful here. I can't imagine living here year round. It must be awesome." And all of these places we just weren't sure. So we never committed to doing it. So it wasn't ever like an active plan. It was just kind of like someday we're going to move here and we don't know when, but we'll just know when the feeling is right, I guess. My husband is not as like philosophical thinking as I am with these things, but I'm like, I go off my gut for a lot of things. And the timing of this move just felt so right. So the other reason that this timing worked out is interesting too, because so my oldest is 6. He could be in kindergarten this year, but we actually ended up redshirting him. I guess that's what they call it. He was small. He was a little immature. I could have sent him to kindergarten. He probably would have been fine, but I just felt like, let me give him a year. If I have the option, let me just give him a year. And I'm glad I did it because he has grown so much in the past, since the beginning of this school year back in September. But that was another thing that kind of pushed us to do it sooner rather than later, is we were like, well, he's going to start kindergarten next year. And shortly after that, then my daughter's going to start kindergarten. So do we want to have them start a school here and then have to move them? It just makes it a little bit more tricky. So I think the timing of this is perfect. I know a lot of people were in my DMs asking about like the timing of the move and how are your kids going to adjust and all of this. It's going to work out good. And I wasn't planning for it to work out this well, but yeah, we're moving mid to late June. I don't have an exact date yet, but yeah, the kids will be out of school. And then by the time we move down there, school starts a lot earlier in Florida. So technically the school year starts there, I think the first week of August. So really we'll have like a month to get our life together and then start school. As I mentioned, probably we're like 90% sure we're going to homeschool at least this first year just to see how it goes, like help everyone with the transition, obviously enjoy the sunshine. Like I'd tell people like I'm not going to move to Florida and then have my kids go sit in a fluorescent lighted building for 7 hours a day. Like that feels rude, especially when I have my other two kids home with me. Yeah. So I think the timing for that is going to work out nicely. I will say, yeah, a lot of people who have wanted to move are like, oh, how do you time it so perfectly that you move in the summer? Like that's the best time to move. That's when everyone wants to move when they have kids. It just worked out for us. Honestly, when we picked the house that we picked, it's a new construction home. When we picked it, we thought it wasn't going to be ready until October, November time period, maybe even December. And I guess there was some miscommunication between us and the realtor or salesperson, whatever. And yeah, she was like, no, it's like probably June or July. And we were like, oh, well, that worked out perfectly because we were ready to like move in the summer and then just like go rent a place for a couple months in Florida to like bridge the gap. But it's working out that we are not going to have to do that so much. So a question that comes up a lot too is like, what made us land on Northeast Florida? Again, this is not a great answer, but a lot of it came just from a gut feeling. A lot of it came from my in-laws moved there. So when we went to visit them over Thanksgiving break, we were able to see the area. We saw like it's very similar, just at least at first glance, to where we live now in Maryland. Like it has, a Chick-fil-A down the street or whatever. It has like all of the amenities that we want for our kids. It has like a beautiful playground with like a splash pad. There's tons of pools, tons of playgrounds. Obviously the public beaches are beautiful in that area. I can't speak to the rest of Florida, honestly. I mean, I visited different places in Florida once or twice, but not enough to be like, oh yeah, the beaches are better on the East Coast versus the West Coast. And that feels like a battle that people are arguing about a lot. So I can't speak to that, but we really liked the beaches in the area that we were at in Northeast Florida. And yeah, it just seemed very like family friendly, maybe even like leaning a little bit like of an older population, which I'm okay with because they're nice people. I think, I don't know, working in healthcare, I could get along with anybody. But yeah, it just felt like, and then the other big thing was the homeschooling options that are in Florida are insane. I'm still like learning about it, but there's the PEP program. I think I'm saying that right. Well, where basically they give you a scholarship if you're not attending the public schools, like your tax dollars are still going there. So they give it back to you in the form of this. I don't know if they call it a scholarship or stipend. I think it's a stipend, but like to the tune of like 5 to 8 grand, something like that, that you can use toward your kids' extracurricular activities. You can use for sports curriculums, art projects, art supplies, anything you need to homeschool them. And that is like unheard of, like anywhere else, especially in Maryland, like unheard of that the government will give you money to homeschool your kids, which as it should be, because it is hard work and it is absolutely a full-time job on top of your full-time job of just raising them and managing the household. Schooling them is a job. And yeah, you are taking up less space in the public school system. So it's really great that they offer that. That was another big selling point for us moving to Florida versus, North Carolina or South Carolina. Again, I can't speak to those states, what kind of homeschool situations they have. But yeah, we just really loved that Florida is very pro homeschool. It seems like everyone I've talked to that homeschools their kids in Florida are like, oh yeah, this is the best place to do it. I've talked to a few people who have homeschooled in Maryland versus Florida, like they've homeschooled in both places. So they have like teenagers now. And they were like, hands down, it's better in Florida, just as far as more opportunities, more co-ops. They even have like hybrid schools, so you could send which I'm looking into a little bit more, but they have hybrid schools where you can send your kids to like 2 or 3 days a week. And then, so they get that like socialization that everyone talks about. I don't think that's a big deal with homeschooled kids. Again, a topic for another episode. But yeah, they have lots of different opportunities. So you're not just like in a silo with your kids home alone all day. Like there's co-ops, there's hybrid options, there's playgroups. There's so many different ways that you can get your kids involved with and playing with other kids and learning with other kids and learning from other people, like as teachers. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for that. I've been putting something together that I think is really helpful if you're in a similar season of transition. I created an Amazon storefront with curated lists for things like moving essentials, home setup, home decor, and just everyday life with kids. These are all the things we've either used, are currently using, or I've spent way too much time researching lately. So instead of you having to go down the rabbit hole, I kind of already did it for you. When you use my link, I get a small commission at no additional cost to you. So thank you for supporting my small business. This episode is also brought to you by HelloFresh. And honestly, this has been one of those things that's made our current season of life feel a little more manageable. Between moving, working from home, juggling kids, and all of their activities, dinner can feel like the last thing I want to think about. What I like about HelloFresh is that it takes away the mental load. Everything shows up ready, pre-portioned, and I don't have to plan it out. It's one less decision in a day that already has a lot of them. If you want to try it, I'll have a link in the show notes just for you to give it a try. Okay, and then the other biggest thing, I've mentioned this before, but the weather. I mean, you just can't beat it. I keep checking my weather app because in Maryland, the weather here is bipolar. Just this past week, I woke up I think Monday, and it was 30 degrees. There was a freeze warning. It's almost May, or it is May, and it's like, it's freezing. And then the next day it's 85 degrees. And then the next day it was like 95 degrees at one point. Like we were sweating our butts off. And people say like, oh my gosh, Florida, it's so hot. It's like a joke in our family. We say it to the kids whenever it's hot outside. We're just like, oh, it's so hot. And they're like, oh, it's so hot. Anyway, maybe you had to be there. But just like that's people's reaction sometimes when you say you're moving to Florida. They're like, enjoy the heat, enjoy the humidity, enjoy the bugs. Guess what? We have all of that here in Maryland and it sucks. Okay. It might not be for as long of a time, but yeah, if I can handle it for a couple months in Maryland, I can handle it for a little bit longer in Florida and get that sunshine in the winter when I am battling seasonal depression, okay? And trying to not to pull my hair out with kids fighting each other in the basement and like trying to entertain them with the moon bounce for hours on end. So that's my soapbox. Anyway, so one thing that really sealed the deal, and Obviously, we're very blessed to have gotten this opportunity. But my husband and I, as we were like really considering making this decision, this was January, we got to go to the Dominican Republic. It was only for like a 4-day trip, I think. But we left the kids at home, and that really sealed the deal for us because we were able to like sit down and actually talk like, is this something we're actually going to do? Is this something we really want? And like having those like deep conversations without being interrupted by the kids or, late at night, like after they go to bed and you're exhausted and you're half scrolling on your phone, half listening. Like we really got to have those conversations, and it felt we were both on the same page and both like ready and willing to commit to this, and like the timing of it and knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but like we're in this together kind of thing. So I highly recommend if you were making any sort of big decision like that, even, you don't need to go to the Dominican Republic, but go, out to dinner or out to lunch or get a coffee, go on a walk somewhere where you can just talk for 30 minutes, an hour uninterrupted and just let it all flow. Obviously, you both have to be in the right mindset to have a conversation like that. But I think that little trip really sealed the deal for us. We were like, especially being in the tropics, like it was perfect weather there every day too. So we were like, this could be our life. Like we could live at the beach and we can bring our kids to the beach. Like there were families around us at the resort we were at, and just the kids playing in the ocean. Just like, ugh, that's all I want for my kids. I want them to be kids as long as possible and not be cooped up. And I don't know, I see some of the kids in our neighborhood and they're good kids, but they like all they talk about is video games and all. Like every time I see certain kids are like on phones and they're 10 years old and they're on their tablets watching Roblox or whatever they're watching. I don't know. I'm not hip to that stuff, but I'm just like, I want my kids to love being outside, to love like creative, independent play and all of these things. I just feel like technology is taking over our world and it is pushing these kids to grow up way too fast. And I am trying to preserve my kids' youth and innocence as long as possible. And I know a lot of you can relate. And I'm not perfect at it. My kids definitely had YouTube before I realized how addicting and how bad it was. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we're not perfect. We use screens. Don't worry if you do. But yeah, just trying to give them most peaceful, happy childhood as possible with these memories where we are at the beach playing. I mean, what could be better than that? If you're not a beach person, Florida's not for you, right? But maybe you feel happier somewhere else. Actually, this brings me to just a random thought that I had is one of my clients and friends, Tiffany, she recently did a big, huge move like this too. She was living in Georgia and just like she hated it there. And there's nothing wrong with Georgia, right? But like for her, it was not good for her. She didn't like it. And she just craved being in the mountains and hiking every day. And she's very like outdoorsy, like fishing and biking and hiking, all of these things, boating maybe, I don't know. But she ended up moving to Utah, I think last year, and I'm never like she did a whole 180. Like she is so, so happy. So yeah, just another story and another example of like, you don't have to stay where you are. You can make a decision that feels better. Like if you feel like you would be happier in another location, Europe, I don't know, Florida, California, wherever that is, take a risk. I don't know. You don't have to stay stuck. That's my point that I'm making. So obviously there has been a little bit of internal back and forth. I would say the like little panic feelings have just recently started pretty much since like we accepted the offer on our house in Maryland. I'll speak maybe to like a little bit more of the negative feelings in another episode too. But there's definitely, I think the negative feelings just come from fear of being lonely, especially just because like not knowing anyone, not having like kids that I know that my other kids can play, that my kids can play with. That's like one thing that we have here that took a long time to build. It took several years to figure out how to like set up play dates for my kids and keep them busy and entertained on the weekends and things like that. And yeah, that's hard to leave because like nowadays I like, on a Wednesday I call my friend and I'm like, hey, what are you doing on Saturday? Want to go to the zoo? Want to go to the park? Want to have a play day at our house? And like, we have plans for the weekend. So we're not just like sitting home bored all day. So just knowing that we're not going to have that right away, at least in Florida, is a little sad, a little nerve wracking. Like I said, I love my family here. I'm going to miss them terribly. Realistically, we're probably going to come up here at least once a year for the holidays. because my husband does work for his dad's business, which works for Amazon. So that's obviously their biggest time of the year is around the holidays. So I anticipate we'll be back for at least a week or two around then, and I'll be able to catch up with everybody. But it's hard when you do those long distance relationships. It's just not the same. So I'm mourning that a little bit. I'm kind of taking it day by day and not trying to like stress about it too much. But it is something that does make me a little bit sad about moving. I don't feel sentimental about this house at all. It's been a great house. Don't get me wrong. I know some people are like, oh, it's the house that I brought my kids home to and all of that. I don't feel that way about this house. It's been a good house to us. I can say that. But that part of the like sentimental part of living in Maryland is not there for me. And even, especially now, like my in-laws are down there. My brother-in-law is in Savannah, Georgia, so he'll be closer to Florida. So we'll be able to see him more. My parents and step siblings are mostly in Tennessee, so it's not super close to us, but like that's not like holding me here in Maryland anymore. So all that to say, these are the reasons. So really lifestyle, just environment, a long-term vision for our family, all of these things felt like a good reason to go and to go now, that the timing just felt right. So I will say, like, also if you're making a big decision, even if it's not about moving, like you might not get that 100% certainty. I certainly didn't. You might feel back and forth about it, but you never know if you don't try. And I always say, like, the worst thing that can happen is you hate it and then we have to move back. And, we will figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But overall, I'm just feeling really positive, really excited about it. I'm really excited about like having a house that no one's lived in before. It feels, I don't know. This house, I feel like I never fully settled in here because our kids were so young. And then we moved here when my oldest was 9 months, and then my middle child came along a year later, and then my third child came along a year after that, whatever. So yeah, it just felt like we were always in transition in this house. So I never got to like really make it home. Like little things like my wallpaper back here, if you're watching. I've done like little projects, but like not a complete, like, okay, this house is exactly how I want it kind of thing. So I am very excited about that part of it, moving to Florida. So maybe that sounds a little materialistic, but it is a nice selling point, if you will. So yeah, if you're like second guessing a decision, if you are questioning the timing of a decision, if if reality is like hitting you and you just don't know if something is the right decision, I don't know. I'm just someone like, go give it a try, whatever that is. If it's starting a new job, if it's moving, if it's making a new friend, whatever that is. Thank you so much for being here. Hit the follow button or the subscribe button, depending on your platform. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about something I didn't expect at all. And I kind of alluded to a little bit in this episode, but that's like that anticipatory loneliness. I don't know if I coined the phrase or not, but I'm definitely going to be talking about that part of missing people and missing what I've known for so long. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll talk next time. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Just hit the subscribe or follow button in your favorite podcast player. And if you want more real-time updates and behind-the-scenes life stuff, you can find me over on Instagram at Maggie Slow Living. All right, talk soon.